là. Yeah, hello to another edition of the Data Analytics live stream. Today we have a guest, Tenkai. He is a universal genius. So he is a musician, speaker, TEDx speaker, data governance specialist, and also he has written a book, Humanized Data Strategy. Um, yeah, we look also in the music stuff and the presentation. So I start a little bit with the administration stuff. So after the presentation, you can put in your questions in the chat. I will collect them, and then in the Q&A session after the presentation, we will look at your questions. The next step is that we are linked in open networks. So for people they like to connect each other, they can write #lion in the chat and give some informations about you. Also, you are welcome on our meetup groups. So it's a little bit hard to find on LinkedIn events. So you can join the meetup group for find out more. Also, all the videos we show today are from Tenkai's YouTube channel. So here it's the link. I also will put it later in the chat, so you can see it and put it from there. Also, this course or this webinar have also a certificate. You can grab it by fill out the form, and you get it sent. Also, we have a new website. It's in process, so you can check it out. Yeah, data and analytics was too expensive to buy, so I have changed the name. And also, this will help us a lot if you follow us on YouTube, Twitter, and X, or Twitter X. Yeah, it's the same. So LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and X. Yeah. So it's I think we have to talk about the videos, and I think we start with...
Did you ever wonder what data governance is all about? Well, listen up. DATA, letters that we live by. In a world that's digital, we chose the data life. Enterprise-wise, the data flows left and right. We are the ones who keep it all in our sight. Rules, policies, principles, guidelines. Not the most sexy, but better than the stop signs. Working the segue between business and tech. 1 foot in each world, all data in check. Data quality, data quality. No day goes by without this terminology. We know end-to-end how data works best. We set up the rules and the business does the rest. Governance of data, defect terminators. Good data comes first, and the rest will follow later. We know what is right, so let's make the data flow. We're role models of excellence. Let's govern it, let's go. Still not clear what data governance means? Here are some analogies to make you understand. If data is the force, then we're the Data Council. Using it well, that's one of our main goals. If data was a country in a world full of humans, we'd be in the embassy working on solutions. We're running marathons where the data flows, governing holistically in every column, every row. We're not the police, but we are data Sherpas. Without help, there's no hurdle that you can't pass. We might be nerds, but just the good kind. We can do great things even more than these rhymes. Governance of data, governance of defect terminators. Good data comes first, and the rest will follow later. We know what is right, so let's make the data flow. We're role models of excellence. Let's go. Let's go. You made it clear this is the third verse. Are you ready for some governance buzzwords? People, process, projects, and tools. Automation starts with business rules. Data models, solution designs. A data catalog helps us to simplify. Master, reference, and metadata. Overviews are good, but governance is greater. System updates and new integrations will design solutions with standing ovations. Governance is cool, you got that right. In the name of data, hands up and high five. Governance of data. Defect terminator. Good data comes first, and the rest will follow later. We know what is right, so let's make the data flow. We're role models of excellence. Let's govern it, let's go. Governance of data, defect terminator. Good data comes first, and the rest will follow later. We know what is right, so let's make the data flow. We're role models of excellence. Let's govern it, let's go.
Yeah, awesome. So you are a famous rap star. I think you have your microphone muted.
Sorry, yes, now I'm here. Yeah, what a way to start this webinar, huh? I'm glad more people are seeing this too now.
Yeah, and so you're also known as rapper in Nuremberg, or
Only in the data community, which is big enough. But yeah, once in a while, I do get to be at conferences, and then people actually do come to me to say, I've seen your YouTube videos, which makes me feel like a YouTube superstar. But of course, it's within the data community, but it's all nice. It's very nice.
cool. Yeah, so today the topic is humanized data strategy. And yeah, I put your presentation on the stage. So when I left the stage, I collect in the time the questions that people have. We answer after the presentation. And yeah, so enjoy, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Great. So before I get started and I talk about this topic that's very close to my heart, humanizing data strategy, I want to give a little bit of input of why I actually wrote this book and why I'm so passionate about this topic, right? The reason is that I believe in these
Yeah, I think we have a lag a little bit with Tenkai.
oh, good. Was I gone for a while or?
Yeah, I think so. It was a short.
Okay. Am I back now? You can
Yeah.
hear me, right? Great, cool. Okay, I'm sorry. So what I wanted to briefly say is that I believe that a lot of the failures in any data efforts and in data strategies can be traced back to human factors, right? Which is maybe a lack of understanding, maybe a lack of alignment between people, or a lack of communication around things for people to do the wrong things and think the wrong things and take the wrong actions. So this having said, when I look into literature and when I look into what I'm talking about with other data leaders, we all agree that the human side of data is the most critical and the most difficult to deal with, right? But in a lot of ways, there's by far more literature and content about the technical side of data than about the human side of data. And I try to take my basically passion for this topic to contribute to this gap that's there, and wrote this book about humanizing data strategy with the goal of giving a bit more of practical advice of how to actually drive the human side of data in a better way. So let's get started first with a quick introduction about myself. I'm Tiankai. I'm currently working as the data strategy and data governance lead at ThoughtWorks Europe, a consultancy focusing on data and tech topics with bespoke solutions. I'm also engaged in the community as the head of marketing of the German chapter of Dharma International, Dharma Germany, where especially in the German-speaking market and especially in Germany, we're trying to organize events and bring data management professionals together. I also was a TEDx speaker about AI, where I talked about the human values that I need to drive the future of AI at TEDx Nuremberg. I wrote a book about humanizing data strategy, as you know. And as you have just seen, I often also apply my musical skills to data topics itself and try to make data more approachable and fun. Personally, I'm born and raised in Germany, but my parents actually are from China. They came in here in the 80s, and I basically was born and grew up here in Germany. The reason why I'm telling you this is because being with the face that you're seeing here, growing up in Germany, made me feel very different from the very beginning, right? No matter how I was born and raised here, the way I look made me feel in many ways, of course, always being an outsider or being treated as a foreigner at first, which was a difficult thing to deal with, right? And when I was traveling to China to visit my relatives, for example, then as soon as I opened my mouth and as soon as I did something, it was very obvious that I was not born and raised there, which made me then feel like a foreigner there. Feeling not like someone who is from anywhere is a difficult feeling, right? But instead of dwelling on the negative sides of it, I decided to turn it around into a positive energy, right? To make sure that people feel included most of the time, to bring people closer together so that not anyone else has to feel the way that I feel about it to do that. Fast forward later to a few decades later now, right, where I switched from the data analytics side to the data management, data strategy, data governance side. I realized that there was a kind of a gap there too, right? So when I was working in analytics and a little bit in data science, all of the business people really welcomed me, right? It was that feeling of saying, oh, bring us insights, bring us recommendations. We love to have you here. And when I switched from analytics all of a sudden to the data governance side, everyone started ignoring me. People were really resistant about it, right? Nobody wanted to even react to the door that I was knocking. And I realized that feeling was very familiar, right? All of a sudden being first very welcome, and then all of a sudden being excluded and being a little bit biased towards me felt like a familiar feeling. So I basically applied what I learned from growing up as a human being and trying to basically turn that energy into an inclusive energy to also apply that to data governance, to make data governance a bit more understood, to make data governance more approachable, and to then basically turn it into a more empathetic approach to data governance itself. So why do we need to talk about data strategy anyway, right? If we think about it and if we look at the current world, data is more popular than ever, for better or worse, right? We are looking into a world where higher speed and more complexity is more present than ever, right? Not least because of COVID times, digital transformation has arrived everywhere, right? And that means that there are constantly new business models and changes of business processes that we need to deal with, right? In the world, we have also invested a lot into data literacy and to make everyone in organizations be more knowledgeable about how data works. And we subsequently have also democratized data a lot. But that led to the side effect that data is now used at places that we don't necessarily know anymore, right? So the transparency has been a little bit missing, and we don't really know what data is being used for what anymore. Then we have also, especially in Europe, for example, also extensive regulations and law environments that are constantly changing and that are putting more and more strict regulations on top, right? In terms of data privacy, in terms of ESG, in terms of the EAI, like the EU AI Act. Those are things that are driving demands towards data as well. And last but not least, we have new technologies and industry trends. We cannot talk about data without talking about AI, right? New technologies and trends are demanding more from data as well, and we need to altogether deal with it. And that, in conclusion, means that we need a data strategy that actually maximizes the value of data while minimizing the risks. And people, process, and technology need to all work together to actually make it work. And if we just talk about what I just mentioned as my story, right? That when the words actually in the communication aspect of things is mismatching, like when I mentioned the word, I come from data governance, then we are associating by nature different things with it based on the unique experience and the unique basically things that we gathered on the way, right? So when I say data governance, I mean data quality, I mean value, I mean risk prevention, and maybe someone else that I'm talking to immediately associates with it the data police, micromanagement, or roadblocks, right? So it all comes down in the end to even the simplest thing, to just even speak the same language, have an alignment on what actually we think are the right things to do, and how to collaborate in the best way possible. That is the underlying aspect of having a more humanized data strategy. So what is a data strategy even, right? I think, interestingly, there's really not like the one definition that is established and adopted by everyone in the world. But I feel like there are better definitions and not so great definitions out there. And I kind of derived from the good definitions that I saw something that works for me, which is that a data strategy is a long-term plan that defines the people, process, and technologies to create, process, and use data to intentionally drive value in a meaningful, secure, and transparent way. The reason why I like this is because it implies three things. right? The first one is that a data strategy should actually be related to the entire data lifecycle, right? We talk about creating, processing, and using data, and not just the using part, which usually is analytics or data science, right? And that means that all data stakeholders have to actually be included in this data strategy, and the strategic part of it all should actually involve everyone together to have a clear contribution to it, right? Then it's also about value driven, right? We shouldn't not only follow the things that are exciting and that are new things to do, like from an innovation point of view, they should actually support the values that we as an organization should drive and the business objectives that we have, right? Which means there should actually be a strong alignment with the business goals itself. And then lastly, human perception is a big part of it, right? When I say meaningful, secure, and transparent, you might have a different definition than what I have as a definition, and what I think is meaningful, you might not see as meaningful, right? So in the end, that all comes down to agreeing on it. So as an organization, as a society, how do we agree on what is meaningful, secure, and transparent? And only once we have figured that out, then we actually can drive in the same direction, because we have the same understanding of what data is all about. To really now bring it to the humanized side of it all, let's talk about what I mean with a humanizing data strategy, right? I break it down in my book into these 5 C's, right? Which are competence, collaboration, communication, creativity, and conscience. Competence means it's about the knowledge across business, data, and technologies, right? And addressing the more intrinsic motivations of growth and for human connection, which leads then into collaboration, which is both inter and cross-functional collaboration, right? First of all, within the data teams that we have, but also how the data teams interact with all the other teams in the organization. It's also about accountability and having the shared goals that lead to co-creation as a mindset. Then we have communication as well, which are about the audience-specific narrative structures, right? To tackle business value from a rational side, but also personal reward from an emotional side, and having continuous impulses. Then it's about creativity, which is for me the underlying human trait to drive innovation, right? Because innovation comes from good ideas, first of all, and then to try them out, which means that is actually driving that part forward. And then lastly, we have conscience, which is about critical thinking and human judgment through cross-functional decision-making bodies, applying that human judgment and the critical thinking that we have to actually make the right decisions. And now in the following, I will actually show you a little bit of the key maybe points from my book that address each of the 5 C's, and to give you some hopefully inspiration on how to use that and apply that in your day-to-day. So let's get started with competence first, right? And when we talk about competence, we should first have a look at what the buzzwords that we have in our day-to-day actually mean, and how that all comes down to data actually being able to influence our decision-making, right? Everything we do in data is about making better decisions in the end, right? And it's about being basically applying what we know from data to then make the right decisions and then be successful commercially or from a societal point of view. And there are a lot of buzzwords out there. One of the most used ones is data-driven, right? But data-driven, from my point of view, actually is only one side of the overall continuum that we have when it comes to data influencing decisions. And when we start actually from the very left side, which is more experience-focused and, as we usually call it, also gut feeling-based, right? We go then to the right, which is more and more data-focused. And we start with experience-based, where there's no data involved at all, and we fully have to rely on people's expertise and their gut feeling to make the right decision, right? Then we have data-inspired, which means that human decisions are indirectly influenced by data, right? Imagine that you want to make a decision and you look into the data, there's nothing that directly actually supports your decision, but you actually feel you can extrapolate or derive from a different data set something that helps you to make a decision. Then we have data informed, which is a clear pairing of data insights with experience, where the data actually generates exactly the needed insights for you to make the right decision, and you can be really sure of it. And then lastly, it's about data-driven, right? Which is really automated decision-making by machines. Imagine, for example, dynamic pricing on e-commerce platforms, where the price is being changed by different parameters, but it happens already automatically over time. And there's not someone who's clicking on different prices every day to make them happen, but is actually following a certain algorithm. The thing is that not everything can or should be data driven, right? In the end, we still need a lot of decisions that involve human beings and critical thinking. So should actually everything be data driven? Probably not. But it's also wrong to say that we should move away everything from data and make everything experience based, because we should trust our own gut feelings. So the truth is that everything is somewhere probably in between on this continuum, right? But we have to make conscious choices how to actually let data influence our decisions, and what type of decisions we should be more data focused or more experience focused, and thereby then deriving the right way of dealing with data and applying data to the right use cases in the right decisions. And when we talk about making decisions, equally important is having the right knowledge and the expertise about it, right? And data literacy, again, is one of those topics that I believe was really strongly pushed over the last years. But data literacy on its own is probably not enough. We basically, as the data community, have decided that the rest of the organizations are not actually literate in data, right? This is what we're basically implying. And all of them should learn more about data so they actually can work with us, which can feel a little one-sided if you think about it, right? So we're basically saying, because you're not speaking our language, you should now learn how to speak our language and then come to me once I can actually talk to you. And to actually basically counteract that one-sidedness of it all, I believe that business acumen is equally important to be adopted by data people, right? Data people might be really good in their methodological knowledge and the general knowledge and the meta expertise about how data works, but it only works best if we apply that to a business context, right? So why should we only expect the business experts to learn from us if we don't expect to learn from them, right? And that is why I feel we need to pair data literacy actually with business acumen itself. And it could look a little like this, what you're seeing here as a model, right? That while the conceptual framework of data still might be domain agnostic, data collection, data management, data evaluation, or data application should be all also tailored to specific data domains and business domains, so we can actually then apply it in the right way. It also implies that data literacy and business acumen cannot be completely outsourced, right? Because when we talk to vendors that are actually doing data literacy services and they help organizations upskill, it will always be missing the organizational specific context of it all, which means that organizations have to invest individually and tailored to their own organization's people to actually bring that organizational context. So a mix of basically services and on-demand content out there, plus their own investment of skills and efforts to actually upskill people is what's needed to bring it all together. And this way we can all work one step towards together, data experts, business experts coming together and then working on data in the right way. Which then nicely leads into the topic of collaboration, right? Two main topics were, I think, in collaboration modes really talked about and were buzzwords in recent years, which are service and self-service. Service, reflecting that you have a central data team that is basically doing all of the data work for the rest of the organization, whereas it also goes more into more scalable and decentralized approach called self-service, right? Where you basically have a platform and an enabling team as a center part, but all of the business domains can actually self-serve themselves what they need to do and to really drive value there. And no matter how you see it and no matter how you operate it, there's always going to be friction, right? When you are a service team, then there's always going to be more demand towards what the service team can do than the service team can deliver in the given time, right? Having basically always that kind of negotiation about what is possible. And when it's self-service, the people that are using that self-service capabilities are always going to be wanting more from what they can do with self-service. And the platform team is always going to be providing more and more capabilities to actually use it. Again, leading to that mindset, I need more, but I cannot offer more than there already is in the speed that you need to have. And it all comes down for me to actually that mindset that is driven by the word service itself, because service itself sounds very transactional, right? It basically means I'm providing you a service, you give me some counterpart like monetary, for example, or some kind of acknowledgement, and then our transaction is done. But that is not how data efforts should be driven. It should be actually much more about what I call co-creation as a mindset, right? Co-creation implies that there are actually shared goals and a shared purpose of doing things together. It's about having clear contributions to one common goal, and that each of them then actually also gets the right acknowledgement of having contributed to that goal. And also it's about strong commitment that once we have a shared goal, we all commit together to go towards that goal, and we do it together. And I'm not talking about a different operating model, right, where you have to change your whole organizational structure. It's much more of a change on mindset to think about co-creation, because then good things can be derived from it, right? For example, you can apply it to OKRs, where you're actually deriving the same actions towards common OKRs. You can also ensure that you have commitment across different teams by having those shared goals. But the co-creation mindset, I think, can be really strong to work in any kind of world where you're having service or self-service, to drive collaboration to a better way. And when you start any kind of data efforts, right, it's always difficult, I think, to get started and trying to boil the ocean. There's so much to fix and so much to be done in data. So how can we actually make our data strategy impactful, right? And what I believe is the key here is to show value quickly by solving problems. And you need to be able to do that, you need to actually identify those problems. And I call that the following the pain approach, right? It basically means that you should find someone in the organization, I believe every organization probably has that is really struggling and frustrated with data problems they have, and basically work with them to solve their problems, right? The reason why that is going to work is because of two things. One is they're very frustrated about the situation, which means they're very eager to get their problem solved. So they will prioritize it immediately to work with you as well. And second of all, because they might have already created a workaround to make the solution work, but that workaround is very hard to maintain and to run, and it's a high manual effort, for example. But it also means they have a very clear picture of what correct and the solution of the problem could look like. So it's easy to then get started and to actually drive towards that solution and make that happen. And once the solution is in place, you have actually then created advocacy, because that impacted team is very happy about how the strategy worked for them. And they will create more awareness for the solution itself, thereby letting others share their data pain points again. And then the cycle starts over and over again. And the more problems you solve, the more you scale out and apply your data strategy, and the more valuable your data strategy becomes. All in all, that's following the mindset of thinking big, but starting small. And what is very important, as I mentioned before, is also the matter of mindset, right? If we think about data strategy and the literary milestones that exist that we have in data strategy, those are like data management maturity increasing, which you may be measuring once per year, right? It's maybe an implementation of new guardrails, which might happen or takes like 4 to 5 months. And maybe there's a data quality monitoring going live, and that takes also maybe a month to actually get there. And if you only focus on these things, then there can be a lot of emptiness between those milestones, right? And if you don't feel any progress between those milestones, you might lose motivation very quickly, especially in the data teams. So it's all about reframing what is seen as success, right? Because success can also be in making progress on changing mindsets. It might be improving efficiency through a new process. It might be certain teams that are committing now finally to a new project together, or it's about new ideas that have been tried out and that lead to some kind of incremental changes and optimizations. And by seeing those things as success too, data teams will communicate those as success more, and the wider organization will see also more progress in seeing these small things as success too. And then hopefully everyone sees success in the data strategy in different ways than before. Cool. Now let's talk about basically the value of data itself, right? And the idea is here that we have to communicate the value of data and the data strategy towards the rational side as well as the emotional side of human beings. Often data efforts and the data strategy is focusing on business impact, right? That might be like saving costs, increasing revenue, or avoiding risk, right? Which is the right thing to do. You have business metrics clearly established. You want to focus on them. And rationally, of course, that's the right thing to do, and it's undeniable for everyone. But it doesn't necessarily emotionally motivates people to follow it and to be passionate about what they're doing, right? And to be actually make people passionate about it, you need to address what they personally want to get out of it, right? So, for example, when we talk about higher profitability as a business impact, right, then the middle ground between personal reward and business impact might be it's about higher productivity. And the personal reward might be that there are a few people that finally can reduce their manual efforts, that they spend, let's say, 4 hours a week on cleaning a data set, that they just don't have to do that anymore. And they can finally spend that time on something else, right? Or it's about the new revenue channels, which leads to technological innovation being the middle ground between that. But it actually addresses the joy of experimentation of certain people in an organization, right? And which means that we can use business impact as like the overarching narrative for everything, right? But when we talk to different audiences to actually onboard them into and getting buy-in from them into that data strategy, we should address their personal needs as well, and address what personal rewards they get from it. And that means having maybe a slightly different story depending on different audiences, but it's definitely going to help to make people not only rationally motivated to do it, but also emotionally motivated to do so. And all of that should tie into a nice storytelling structure as well, right? Storytelling, in my case, I define as something to actually reduce resistance and to get buy-in, right, in your data strategy. And it's very simple. I actually just think that we should apply a certain overarching structure to everything we talk about in a data strategy, which is starting with the why, then the what, and then the how. The why is all about understanding the audience and starting with the purpose, right? And that is equally as much business impact as it's about personal reward, what I mentioned before. It's also about the what, which means we should ensure that required decisions and actions are explained in a language that the audience actually understands, right? And we should be really specific on requirements and urgency. And then it goes into the how, of course, which is all about resources, timelines, deliverables, et cetera, and make sure that it becomes a priority for all collaborators. As data professionals, I know that we're all very passionate about the how, right? We love talking about having new algorithms, having built a dashboard, and how we got actually, how much we analyzed to actually come to a certain conclusion. But without the why and the what first, why should business people actually care about it, right? This is why I think starting with the why and the what is really key, right? Why actually makes it a common ground that everyone cares about and that we all know that this is important, what we're doing. So people are naturally then caring more about the what and the how, and we are not going to lose people's interest or their motivation on the way. And this can fit to everything, right? It can fit to your stand-up that you have every day in your teams. It can fit to the project update that you're delivering on a day-to-day, right? Everything, if you just follow that structure of a why, what, and how, I believe you can talk to your business stakeholders in a much better way. Cool. And when we talk about stakeholders anyway, right, then of course there are different types of stakeholders that we need to manage. We have the leaders that are sponsoring everything we do in data. We have collaborators that are the advocates and that need to work with us to actually make sure that we are successful together about data. And we have, of course, the data teams themselves that are doing it all operationally, that need to stay motivated to actually do all of that. And keeping that relationship with all of them is really important. And that leads to also the step of how to manage stakeholders, right? And I'm sure all of you are familiar with stakeholder mapping, which usually goes into promoting and detracting versus a level of influence that you can have, right? And to do that. But you can also apply other aspects of attitudes to that same framework that can allow you tend to be better in your communication with the stakeholders, right? For example, you have believers versus skeptics. Believers are those people that are immediately loving everything new and jump right on the wagon of any hype because they believe it's the next best thing. And you have skeptics that are really skeptical about everything new, and they always need like 10 or 20 times of the efforts to see proofs of value and proofs of concept to actually believe in it. And of course, you have a lot of people in between. You also have thinkers versus doers, right? Thinkers are those people that love to have very deep philosophical thought about everything. And they love to think it very, very deeply through, but then they don't want to do anything or implement it, right? Versus you have also doers that really love to jump into the doing and gets things started, only to realize a little bit later that they should have thought about it a little longer because they probably have done the wrong thing. And of course, you have people all in between that too. But if you think about it, you can map stakeholders on that continuum of these ranges too, right? And different people, being more believers or skeptics or more thinkers or doers, they need different ways of talking to them too to focus more on proving them something, or to focus more on complementing their thinking or their doing, right? All of that can influence how you talk to them. And this way you can have more of a structured approach to actually manage your stakeholders as well. And that leads me to creativity, right? Creativity itself is, as I mentioned before, the foundation to innovation, in my point of view, right? And when we talk about creativity, there are actually two different types. There are, from my point of view, two types. One is spontaneous creativity, and the other one is solution-oriented creativity. Spontaneous creativity is really more that spark of genius that often happens, where all of a sudden you think of a new idea out of apparently nowhere, right? That might be a new use case you think about for collaboration. It might be a new opportunity to learn something that you haven't thought about before, or as like an unexpected association between two different topics. And that is more proactive. Solution-oriented is much more common, I think, in the workplace, which is that you need to solve a problem and you brainstorm about it and try to find new ways of actually solving that problem, right? That could be optimizing existing processes, it might be improving methodologies, or it might be also communicating in a different way than before. And usually that is reactive, right? Because you're reacting to a problem and you need to solve it in a different way. The way I'm mentioning that, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because if you start being more solution-oriented with your creativity, then it actually drives up your spontaneous creativity, because creativity is what I believe is a muscle. All of us have creativity in us. We might be using it more or less in our day-to-day, but the more you use it, the more you know how to intuitively use it. So the solution-oriented creativity can actually start igniting your spontaneous creativity to do it more. And when creativity is finally there and you want to apply it more, then we need to also create the right environment to apply creativity, right? As Picasso said very nicely, the enemy of creativity is common sense. And that is true, because it does feel very awkward if you try a new thing for the very first time, and it just doesn't feel natural, right? It's very normal to feel that way. But I also always say, what's the worst that can happen if you're creative, right? As long as you're not offending anyone, trying something new, the worst case is that people just don't care about it. And that's completely fine. They just try something else and you do it over and over again until something actually resonates with people. And by that time, you actually got used to things not resonating. So you just keep on innovating and being creative in the way you are. But to create the right environment, we need to focus on three things, right? First, the mindset, which is allowing everyone in an organization to be creative, especially in the data space, right? Then it's about practice, giving people the chance to actually practice their creativity in certain group environments or being just encouraging of new ideas, right? And then finally, making it a habit. So everyone actually has creativity as a default. So whenever a problem appears or anything that is there to be done, people have that need and that trait to be just creative and to think of ways to actually make things better. And creativity becomes a default. And that leads to maybe the last point about conscience, right? Where it's really about having 4 types of different data concerns that we should apply our critical thinking and our human judgment on, which I would roughly group into 4 types. One is data privacy concerns, right? About any personal and identifiable information. It's about security concerns, when it's about sensitive information that shouldn't get into the wrong hands, right? It's about data ethics as well, right? To actually not only avoid, but also prevent disadvantages to specific groups of people. And then, of course, you have ungoverned AI, which is more of a challenge that AI models are taking extra effort to be interpretable and explainable to actually make sure that it stays transparent in the way that we can do it. But over other days, when a data team could, and only data people could make all of these choices and to actually oversee all of it, because in the new world, things are going so fast, we need actually cross-functional expertise to apply that to actually make the right choices. That means inviting and involving your legal colleagues, your HR colleagues, your DEI colleagues, your ethical colleagues, your InfoSec colleagues, right? Everyone who should have a say in this should all work together to actually make the cross-functional expertise work, to then apply critical thinking in a more holistic way, and then having the right decision-making process to drive these things in the world. The thing is that if we don't do it, right, there might be really bad things happening, and more it will be the case where data problems will be irreversible, right? A leak of data into the world of data that isn't supposed to be leaked, where people shouldn't get authorized access. AI models that are allowing, let's say, scammers to do their things, or autonomous weapons to do things, and we have not oversight anymore about it. Those are horrible scenarios that we should really avoid, right? So we should actually all work together to address those challenges to make it not happen. So in closing words, technology should support and not replace humanity, right? We unfortunately know that humanity is flawed. So if we only let technology amplify all of us in an automated way, it's going to amplify our flaws too. And we don't want that. So we should actually keep it human and use technology as it's intended to be, as a tool to amplify the good things of what we do as human beings. Working in data is not only exciting, but it also comes with responsibility, right? To quote maybe Spider-Man, to say, with great power comes great responsibility, right? We should be aware of that. And we should guide others that are dealing with data to be responsible in what they're doing too. And lastly, data should be taken seriously, but we can still have fun working with it. I say that often, more than often enough, I would say. But really, we are spending so much time with it, right? Let's have fun with it. Let's take it seriously, but both is possible. So the future of data lies in all of our human hands. Good luck to everyone. And I'm very happy to take questions now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Tenkai. So yeah, your LinkedIn, YouTube QR code, cool, that people can get it. So this was a really great session and give a good overview of the topic. Thank you so much. I have a question, and also I forgot. Yeah, you can also ask the question in the chat. Is there a good starting point for companies, how they should start with a data strategy? What's a good entry point?
Yeah, I think any time, any place is a good entry point to start a data strategy. I think more or less there are some kind of structures usually in organizations how they plan their data work already, right? But the real challenge with that is that it happens often in silos, right? So different departments have their own little isolated data strategy, and they might not call it data strategy, but it's basically a business strategy with data being involved there. And that itself is nice, but it might be that these different data strategies are conflicting with each other and not having been aligned to each other, right? So what I believe is really key is to have that overarching data strategy. So whenever you feel like your data efforts are too misaligned or too siloed, having a more strategic approach to actually bring these streams together is really key. And it doesn't have to be like a full-fledged 300-page document or anything, right? It can just be that you agreed on certain priorities over the next year or so that are not concrete projects, but just priorities for now, and that you assign different teams and different people to drive that in the right direction, and then basically build the people, process, and technology behind it to make it work. And there are different degrees of a data strategy that everyone can do as much as they like. It's more about having that mindset first, that you need a strategy and that it should be more aligned and more harmonized, and then to go in that direction more strategically.
Yeah, thank you for this intro. Did you think there are, I don't know, tools out there to develop a data strategy?
Yeah, tools as in, I would say frameworks, yes. I'm sure that, I mean, if you look at any kind of like business model canvas is a good starting point, for example. My 5Cs framework is a good starting point. Bernard Marr wrote a great book about data strategy. That could be also a starting point. There's a lot of, I think, frameworks that you can start with to do that, but nothing like a technological tool, I would say. Because in the end, a strategy is a human decision that we make, right? We all agree together on what's important. You cannot ask something that you're working on for the answer to actually do it, because choosing a technology itself is a choice you make for a data strategy as well. So choosing it before you actually do the data strategy and letting the tool decide for you doesn't really make sense. I'm also doubting that any tool is able to even do that, to generate a data strategy that works for you in the right place right now. So let's focus more on frameworks and best practices from a human side, but not too much on technology as a starting point.
And you have called it humanized. Is there data strategy? Is there also an example for an unhumanized data strategy?
Sure. I think that would be an isolated technology strategy that is not aligned with anyone else. And then you just buy and acquire a bunch of tools in your organization and hope that everyone uses it. But neither the tools work with each other, nor do the people actually adopt to using the tools. So in the end, you have just fancy tools standing that nobody uses, and everybody's wondering, why are we not generating value with it, right? So that for me probably is like the opposite of a humanized data strategy.
Yeah, and then we have two questions from the people can ask, or you can also ask longer. So we have the first questions is from Hema. All right, Said, can you talk about the pain points while data acquisition?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, if you are thinking about acquiring data from external sources to use for organization, right? I mean, there's so many pain points possible. I feel maybe the first point that comes to mind is data quality, right? That if you are acquiring data and you're not responsible for generating data in the first point, but you're getting it from someone else, you have certain requirements towards that data, right? And so how do you establish even the right service level agreements and service level objectives and indicators with the provider of the data to get it in the right way so you can use it? And how do you avoid not spending time to clean it up or to fix it yourself on the receiving end to actually take it forward, for example, right? But also after that then, right, how do you ensure that the acquired data is interoperable with all the other data that you're acquiring from different sources? How do you basically integrate it with the different data that you also have? All of that can be really strong pain points, but they all go back again to first think about what requirements are, talking to each other, and then making it part of technology like data contracts, etc., before you can do it. I think, if you break it down into specific root causes of the pain points, I think the path to solution might be a little easier. Yeah.
Okay, yes, a long question for Jamim.
Okay.
Yeah,
where are you?
I think with
Cool.
AI and things like Copilot, self-service analytics will be increased democratization data. However, how do you improve data literacy and ensure accurate insights are gleaned at enterprise level when you have no control of data validation, cleaning, and transformation? That's a data team will usually do. And the next question, there is a risk the wrong business decision will be made. How to mitigate this? Okay, I put it down because it was so long.
Very good question. I think what to maybe frame it in a different way, right? Self-service analytics, in that case, maybe BI even, right, is going to change, right? But because before we focused a lot on dashboards and who's creating these dashboards, how are these dashboards being used, and how do you make sure the dashboards are showing the right metrics? But I think the interfaces are going to change. Self-service is probably going to move to generative AI a lot more, and maybe LLMs and chatbots, whatever you want, right, with this, to actually generate dashboards for you all of a sudden ad hoc, to spit out basically immediately the right metrics with the right values to you. And that means that data literacy is changing, right? It goes actually to more maybe prompt engineering almost. How do you interact with the chatbot to get the right metrics and the right BA out of it? And it's not about actually reading a dashboard anymore. You just need to ask the right question. But even more underlying there, how do you make sure that the chatbot is getting the right data in the right way? And you're absolutely right about data validation, cleaning, and transformations. That's the underlying aspect. And that, I think, needs to go back to best practices in data governance overall, right? So that means KPI governance, making sure that KPIs are always all defined in the right way. They're always calculated in the right way, and they're all getting it from the golden source that you define, right? But also it's about the semantic layer, right? So that you ensure that it's all in the same language, that when you ask a chatbot, can you please give me the revenue or the profitability of a certain product at a given time, that the chatbot itself knows exactly what profitability means and how it's defined, and how actually it finds the right product that you want to measure it from. And all that is on that semantic layer that is bridging between structured data, unstructured data, and creating like an accessible way of chatbots also to get the right context of it. So both, in short, right, it's both the foundational best practices of data governance, data management that we can still apply. But given the new interaction model with self-service users, we need to ensure that we change the way how we define data literacy, and we just pay more attention to the touch points and the specifics.
Awesome. Okay, the next one from Likita. what the best path for anyone to become successful in higher position in data governance?
Great question. The reason why I am a little bit hesitating with the answer is that we are moving into a world where governance is becoming more federated, right? Meaning that actually more and more governance is being done in different domains, in business domains. And the central data governance function becomes more of a facilitation and enabling function rather than doing it all centrally. So when we talk about higher positions in data governance, we might need to define what that actually means. We could say that the highest position in data governance is the chief data officer themselves, because they have governance responsibilities too, right? That might be one goal. But also, is it better to be in a business domain, the highest role in data governance, or is it better to be in that facilitation central role in data governance? What is the most high position you can get, right? In the end, what helps to anyway get higher from a junior position to a more, let's say, senior position, I would say, is the business acumen and the mindset and the skill set to interact with other stakeholders in the organization. I believe that it really comes down to, are you able to work together and convince other people to do data governance with you, right? And are you able to speak the right language with them and have the right collaboration model with them to make it work? So they all acknowledge you actually as the right person to do data governance. That is, I think, what is nowadays the difference between a more senior team member and a more junior team member. So that, I think, is the right way, right? Build on your communication and collaboration skills while still keep evolving your technical skills. And the more you can show yourself and be present for your business stakeholders, the more likely you hopefully can get to in a higher position.
Great. I also think that there's really a shift there, and I think most I know there's the owner of diverse data, so we have data ownership. I think it's also be the highest position, but I think it's more career stuff, and I think that's hard. I think it's for all these data companies have it. I don't think it's more. It will be more. Yeah, when you are the head of the data catalog, I think you are in the highest position.
Sure. That could also be, exactly.
Okay, then from Jens, we have a question. Oh, we have 3 questions from Jens, so that comes more.
It's the same question, I think, though. It's just 3 times in. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's real. Okay. Then, how do companies make it clear how important investing in data strategy is without letting fear become a driver? Many companies are now aware of this, but most don't know that they don't yet know something critical for the success of data and AI.
Yes, I think that's a really good question. I would first talk about the factor of fear, right? Because I think the fear is coming from different directions potentially. One is the fear of having to change too much, right? That might be it. So think like everything worked so far. If by now strategically decide that we do things completely differently, are we going to do that, right? That's one fear. Another fear is fear about regulations and stuff, right? That you feel like you're only being pushed into having a data strategy because any regulation requires you to do so. So you do it out of that. Or the fear that data strategy itself is a black hole, right? That the data strategy is the waste of money. So why should I even do a data strategy in the first place? If things are already working, why should I even bother? And all of those, I think, could be valid fears. And the answer to it is that we should be more flexible about how a data strategy is established, right? I feel like a data strategy should be only as detailed as the organization needs it to be to actually run it and for everyone to come behind it to then do it. So if you can connect it to the success factors of data and AI, to say if we need specific AI use cases to work, right, then we need to actually create all of these work streams that actually establish that we can run these AI use cases within a given time. Then I think you have a really strong motivation to say we need a data strategy that enables all of the ideas and all of the efforts that we already have. And the moment you position it as something that is supporting something that everyone is already behind, instead of it being a standalone thing that we should achieve for itself, then I think it can be really successful. And it's more about, to get there, we need to have the data strategy. So let's make it as good as it needs to be for reaching that specific goal.
So we can say it's better to make a data strategy as MVP. Most
Sure. Exactly.
And then
an agile strategy, maybe.
And then we can add something that's better than have the perfect data strategy in 20 years.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice. So great. Then there are no new questions, so I think we can end with a.
I think there's one
with a
more. Yeah, right, from Zuleha. Yeah.
Is it the question? Okay, let me.
Yeah.
Not all data strategy is tailored to the needs of a company. Is there a resource or data case study that shows different cases and what strategy was appealed, especially for the recent digital climate?
Yeah, good question. I think, So first of all, I think when you go to conferences, then you will hear live from specific companies how they apply the data strategy. That is, I feel like, the best source usually. If you hear it from them, and then you can have a proper conversation with those company representatives that are talking about it, that for me gave me the most learnings and gave me the most inspiration how to do a data strategy well. I think when it comes to the digital climate, I believe you're referring to more regulations, right? And being more maybe polarized in certain aspects of it all. That is reflected in these talks from conferences too, I think, right? In the end, if you just start looking for it more, and if you actually just follow certain news, like especially I think Dataversity is a great website to be part of, to see who is contributing there, for example, things and so on, or being part of communities like TDWI or DataQG, for example, are good places to be too. Then you will just hear actually more from those specific organizations how they did it, and that hopefully can give you exactly the case studies that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's also, you can also follow data and analytics, and when you wish, we can publish some case studies from companies. So we will do it when the people wish. And yeah, then thank you so much. I think we have a next song. So have you a favorite song?
I think maybe if Disney songs were about data could be a good, fun one to play.
If Disney songs were about data, okay, then
Yeah.
I put it on the stage.
Do you want to build a dashboard? I'm so tired of Excel files. Literacy. Once you know better about all the data, let's collaborate. Data flowing drip, and then it stops. Oh, API is broken, no one's helping out. Oh, you've got a bug in there. When the code just doesn't work, and you look and you can't figure out. ChatGPT is happy to help. Oh, you've got a bug in there. We don't talk about Excel, no. We don't talk about Excel. In Python or in R. In Python or in R. Which language is better to use? It depends. This could be the start of governance, so we can improve the data quality, yeah. Someday AI will come and will replace all our jobs. Look in the data catalog and might have what you're looking for. If we all document things, it'd be great. I love SQL. Select what I need from all the tables. It's part of basic data skills. We all should know SQL.
Yeah,
right.
Thank you so much. Great. So yeah, thank you for the session, and also we will publish the recap on the next few days on data and analytics.
Awesome.
So check out, and I think this was a really interesting and great session. And so I say goodbye to all, and the last words are for you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and feel free to connect with me and talk to me. And yeah, I'm eager to connect with you all. Thank you.
Thank you.